the issue now is probably quantity and then maintaining a level of quality at the same time.
Right.
And that's the dilemma that, especially the clients that we work with have. It's how do you scale out production?
If you truly believe in the power of video as a better way to engage your audience, you can quickly encounter some serious challenges in evolving your content strategy. You want to create more videos to support each stage of the buying journey, and you want to create better videos that help you stand out from the crowd and maximize your impact. But that can be an expensive and resource-intensive proposition. But does it really need to be? Maybe it depends on how you think about what quality really means in this new world of video, and how we choose to approach the video creation process. Welcome to Video in Focus, the show that explores the expanding role of video in modern marketing and sales, and how to build better relationships through purposeful video content. I'm your host, Tyler Lessard, and today we're speaking with Fergus Dyer-Smith, a brilliant creative, a courageous entrepreneur, and the founder of a new type of video agency called Wooshii.
I come from a family that's been in film since film began, really.
Okay.
So I've always had a passing interest in it. And I was living in Portugal at the time. I'd had a company prior. I was basically surfing as much as I possibly could, and it was around about this time as YouTube just starting to come to be.
Right.
And what I found super interesting was that there was this huge group of people around the world that were making amazing stuff, and up until then, actually cameras and editing had all been just way out of the reach of most people, and so the ability to create this stuff was being democratized, I guess is the word that everyone would use, and that to me was just like, okay, this is a massive shift, because up until then, if you wanted to produce great quality stuff, you had to buy film,
right?
Which in itself was bucks, and so I found that interesting. And so initially it was just, well, let's try and connect these people together, build a little community.
Yep.
And that community grew, and then it started to become, okay, well, now companies would like access to that community because they got stuff that wants to be made. And it then just evolved and evolved, and I wouldn't say there was any one particular point in time where it was suddenly, hey, this is what we are. It was just, it's got to the point now where the community that we've grown is global. It's thousands of people, tens of thousands, and the businesses that sort of looked to us are large corporate brands that need to scale out video content. And so, yeah, it's an accident. It's the short answer.
Sometimes the best ideas come to us by accident, and they form out of a need to solve very specific problems. In the case of Fergus and the team at Wooshii, the problem they were trying to solve was how to effectively scale video production without compromising on quality and without demanding big budgets. What started as a two-sided marketplace to connect businesses with producers soon evolved into a video production agency with a global network of creators able to produce content at almost any scale and on a wide range of budgets. Now, building a global network of creative talent while also working with hundreds of different businesses around the world has given Fergus a unique perspective on the evolution of video and what it really means to scale production.
In the last 10 years, I think it's super interesting. I think for me, like, video feels like it's been around for about, I mean, obviously video's been around for decades, but really online for about 10 years.
Yeah.
But actually, if you look to most of our customers, they probably really only have been looking at it in the last 2 years. So, I feel like this thing's been here for ages, and actually the customers I'm talking to, they're really just getting started with it, especially the sort of companies we work with. It's been there, they've sort of, they've known about it. It's been this thing that they've had to go and look at, but it's just not been on the radar. And in the last, I would say 2 years, it's properly on the radar now.
Yeah.
But I think that the big shifts are, obviously distribution's free, effectively. Obviously you can pay to distribute stuff further if you so wish, but distribution's been completely brought down.
Yep.
I mean, even if you're paying for it, the cost of attention is just so low.
Yep.
As a format, it's the winning format. I mean, you could argue that the mobile device is the winning device, and I would say video is the winning format. It's compelling. You can move people. You can make them happy, sad. You can deliver information. Just so much about it that obviously everyone's looking at it. The issue now is probably quantity.
Yep.
And then maintaining a level of quality at the same time.
Right.
And that's the dilemma that especially the clients that we work with have. It's how do you scale out production? So, the distribution problems have been solved really well. Obviously, what you're work that you guys do is helping there. There's if you want to get it further afield than your own audience, there's ways that you can pay to do that. But the production problem is still a manpower problem generally. There are tools that will help you, I guess, create repeatable types of content and somewhat homogenized, which doesn't not degrading in any way. It's a specific type of content generally for a specific purpose. But it's still a manpower problem, really. And then kind of coupled with that is the creativity side of it, which is once you get to scale, how do you scale the creativity along with it? It's not easy.
No, well, it's interesting that you bring those both up in the same breath of quantity and quality, because what I often see that, to your point, the challenge a lot of businesses I speak with that start to face is the scale issue. Is okay, we understand and we buy into the need for video, but it still feels difficult, complex, expensive. We don't have the manpower to scale the use of it, and that's usually the challenge they come in with. But soon after, once they start to use it more broadly and learn to scale, it comes back to that creativity. And now they feel like we're just creating video for the sake of video. How do we really leverage the power of this medium more so than just another way to tell the same story? How do we get back to the creative roots of video?
Yeah, I think the thing is it's not getting wrapped too much in necessarily the quality around production. So I mean, we're sitting here with a camera and we talk to clients all the time about this, is that look, and it's often, I think, it's like a procrastination block against producing. It's, we haven't got the right cameras, we haven't got the right kit, we haven't got the people that know how to work it. No, you've got a phone in your pocket which has a 4K camera in it. It's outrageous, the power of that thing. You can create whatever you want. It's actually, you've got to take the time to decide what it is that you're going to do. You need to create, like all these things, they're best laid out if you've got some sort of plan, some strategy around it, and then you can produce tons of it.
Now, whether you're creating content on the fly with your smartphone or webcam, producing in-house with DSLR cameras and professional editing software, or working with a video production agency, it's never been easier or less expensive to create video at scale. And in fact, most businesses that I speak with are now embracing a mix of these approaches to address their various content needs. But as you heard from Fergus, producing the actual content is only half the battle. The other half, and perhaps the more important half, is building your muscle for visual storytelling. Because as the ability to produce video becomes more and more commoditized, the winners will be those who can stand out from the crowd with truly engaging, relevant, and highly creative video content.
I'm increasingly seeing now a dialogue around this idea of creativity becoming important again. I don't know whether it ever went away, but I definitely think for a period of time, it's been about quantity. How do you scale? How do you get a volume of content out? How do you make sure that you've got all your how-to videos and your hero and your hygiene and your hub and all these different methodologies?
And even outside of video, blog posts and like a quantity of content and SEO.
And I think what you can see, if you actually look at, say, blogging is a great example. There's a point in time where if you had a blog, that was a thing. Then it became, okay, well, now everyone's got. And now when you look at sort of the advice around blogging, like a lot of it is, spend a ton of time, create one amazing piece of content, maybe one a month or something, and that's the sort of pillar piece of content. And it's a different strategy to what it was, say, 12 years ago. And I think video, to a certain degree, will come. Well, I suspect something like that's going to happen again. And so, where perhaps the creative side of that world is gone because the old, well, not gone, but the old ad, like the 1980s. Is sort of a heyday of the 30-second TV ad, and there's some of the best ads ever created came out of that sort of 1980 period, and I could reel off tons that I absolutely love and still to this day do fantastic pieces of art, actually.
Wait a minute, Fergus can't just tease us like that. Whether you're a small or large company, B2C or B2B, I believe we can all learn from the TV ads of the 80s. So I didn't let Fergus off the hook. And I asked him to share some examples of TV commercials, which are really just campaign videos created by businesses that exemplify amazing storytelling. And here's what he had to say.
There's one that almost any ad agency guy would say. There's the Guinness ad, which is the horse's Guinness ad. I don't know if you have that in the US or in Canada, but go look that up if you haven't. It's just a piece of utter genius. It's pure art. It's just fantastic. You can't help but be carried. I think it was voted like the best ad ever of all time. So
right.
That's a really good one. If you go and look at loads of the milk tray ads, which again is another, Cadbury's chocolate in the UK had it in the 80s or something called milk tray. I think it's still around, but there's one in particular called I think it's the water. But basically they created a sort of like James Bond like character, and they would essentially do an entire James Bond movie in a 30-second ad.
Right. Just
pure brilliance with I think the tagline was something like just all because the lady loves milk tray, and it's just genius. It's like there's another one. So I think that I'll give you those two. I mean, if anyone wants, I could literally send them thousands of these examples. Yeah. But they're great things to study. If you look at the ads of the 1980s, they were 30-second spots, quite expensive spots. So they really had to go to town on these things, and they were competing. The level of storytelling in there is like...
I bet you can't wait to hear how Fergus was going to end that sentence. The level of storytelling is like... what? We'll get back to that at the end of the interview. But first, I asked Fergus about the different types of videos businesses are actually creating today, if not the 30-second TV advert.
As a company, I mean, we work everything from, up to sort of the big TV ad campaigns, if you like. And so we'll work across how-to content and, instructional stuff and educational stuff all the way up to sort of like a digital YouTube ad. But I think where we see the most sort of uptake is, how-to type video content, especially when it's complicated product type business. Right. Promotional stuff in the sense that if you've got something to show, we work a lot in the travel sector, so you get hotels, clearly the thing that they want to be doing is showing where you are and the place that you're going to be staying in. I think we see a lot of customer testimonial type stuff. Anything where if you need people to relay a message, then video is probably the best way to do it, because you can capture some sort of emotion there. If customer testimonials are classic, it's like you can get to write something, but anyone could have done it. It's difficult to get someone to fake their response to your product on a video. So I think that adds a lot of what's the word? I can't think of the word, but you know what I mean. So in the sense that these people, when you see them on camera, you're going to think, okay, this guy's talking the truth. What else would I say? And we do animation. I think is also a really interesting space. Mm-hmm. So if you're working in a sector that has complicated products or processes, or again, we work a lot in the biotech and sort of pharma industry. You're talking microscopic sometimes. It's impossible to film it, but with animation you go anywhere. Mm-hmm. So it's a great way of relaying a message, explaining how something works without actually having to try and find microscopic cameras or something. Right. So I think that's super interesting. I think really any could be Q&A stuff. There's just so much opportunity for a business to build up a library of content that their customers can access. Yep. And I think the expectation there, I think this is one of the big differences you see now, is that the expectation is that there are video answers, whatever you want to mean, to their questions. Right. The first place you turn to anything now is your phone. And I don't think that's generational either. I think that's almost across the board now. Right. You turn to your phone, and it's 9 times out of 10, it's better, it's easier to watch a video on the problem than read a document. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think, and whether it's phone or desktop, you talked a bit about the kind of authenticity piece of having real people talking through and explaining their ideas. And I think, more and more that's a part of the, expectation and demand for video as audiences is partly the authenticity, and that leads to trust, right? Mm-hmm. And it's, I think video is an incredible way to establish and build trust with audiences, which is, sorely lacking in a lot of industries today. And I think, to your point of a lot of how-to content, customer testimonials, educational content, it's I think a very important way for businesses to communicate in that regard as well. Mm.
Yeah, and I've seen some stuff in an outbound focus now. So increasingly we're starting to see these, sort of, and our sales team have just started using video as a tool. And I know you guys have a product that allows people to do this, but when you're reaching out through email or whatever, it's, putting a face to the to the subject, and if it's a face that actually talks to you, right now, I think there's almost a novelty factor to it. But I suspect that over time, that's going to become, you know, you can see the person, you can see what they're trying to get across. It's not just some. And actually, there's a bit of effort that's gone into that. It's not a machine that's just churned out 1,000 emails that morning.
From how-to videos to customer stories to personal video messages and sales, the types of videos that businesses are creating to support their marketing and sales programs continues to expand. Which brings us full circle to where we started this conversation, the need to get smarter in how we think about scaling video creation. And before we go back to find out how Fergus finished that all-important sentence, let's look ahead to the future of how businesses need to think about scaling video creation.
Well, I think you first of all got to work out why you're using it. I think that would be, I mean, that's a bit sort of marketing ABC, but it's, you know, you've got to put yourself in I think what you see a lot of the time is just content for content's sake. Yep. And it's like, we've got to do video, let's push out a load of stuff about our company. Like, you just got to make sure that anyone gives a shit. Yeah. Excuse my French, but it's like, why is the person on the other end going to consume this? There must be some value for them. And once you've worked that bit out, then it actually becomes, I think it's relatively easy to sort of think, okay, how do you scale it? And so the easiest way is to do something like this. You know, you say, okay, let's say we're talking to, you know, I don't know, we run a pizza company or something like that, and you might think, well, okay, we're looking at recipes because people want to make them at home. And you think, well, who's, you know, is there a bundle of people in the industry we could go and talk to about, you know, their tomato sauce or whatever? Right. You do a 30-minute interview with them, and that's okay. So that's part one. And now it's saying, oh, we've got this 30-minute interview. Why don't we cut out 5 or 6 sound bites out of that? That's another 5 or 6 pieces of content. And so very quickly you start to scale up. And you know, I think it's looking at sort of pillar pieces of content, and then what you can extract out of that to create micro content, if that's the right word. Yeah. I think the other thing is having the camera always on, which is interesting. I've just said that because we just run around looking for mics and stuff. But if you have, you know, you've got a camera in your pocket, it's definitely worth investing in a mic. But once you've got those two things, it's really just start capturing stuff. Yep. That's a good place to start. And then I think, you know, especially for smaller businesses, as you go up the chain, if you like, it's starting to think about, okay, look at all the campaigns you've got and think, is this message better delivered through a piece of video content or through a written piece of content? Mm-hmm. And I think 9 times out of 10 you're going to land on video content. That doesn't negate necessarily doing because you can do both. Yes. You know, it's so great actually. The written piece can be the script for the video or the other way around. But often I think video comes first because you can just from there pull all these other pieces of content. And, right. You know, but I think that's a good way to get going. Yeah. You know?
Well, it's a really interesting point, because I think if you are, to me, if you are proactive and thoughtful about what is the series of video content that I want to create, and you're proactive in capturing content, I think that's a huge part of it, because a lot of people today are very reactive to video, and I think that makes it incredibly difficult to scale, because you're not putting the basic fundamentals in place to have a kind of a video creation and capture culture. Yeah. And so it always feels unnatural and challenging when it's, okay, we're going to do this. Oh, we're going to do a video for this. Okay, let's get everybody together, figure out how we're going to do this video, as opposed to being in a proactive kind of video mentality and thinking about, these are the next 5, 6, 7 videos we're going to create, and let's get out there and actively do it and be sort of consistent in that creation. And I think that I found even within our own team, that's been a real key to unlocking the power of video, is having that mentality of being thoughtful and consistent in content creation. And then it starts to be able to scale itself. Yeah, great. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
If you look at the ads of the 1980s, they were, you know, 30-second spots, quite expensive spots. So they really had to go to town on these things, and they were competing. The level of storytelling in there is like, if you watch Back to the Future as an example, that movie, there is not a scene that does not need to be in that film, and there's no extra scenes at all. It's just perfection, the way it's being crafted. And Spielberg just, you know, every single scene just has a point in the story, and that's what the sort of ads of the 1980s were like. One of the good ones anyway. They just crafted these perfect stories. They didn't tell you what you didn't need to know. You got the whole story just from 30 seconds. Brilliant.
There! He's on a hoverboard!
quality versus quantity? Or is it quality and quantity? Video production can be an expensive proposition if you don't think through the mechanics of how you'll execute on it at scale and how you'll truly connect with your audience. But if you're thoughtful in how you approach video creation, if you make it a part of your day-to-day culture, and if you take it upon yourself to be creative and to embrace the art of storytelling, then video might just be the DeLorean that takes your business back to the future. Yep, I went there, and I'm not ashamed of it one bit. And for those listening to the podcast version, I'm sorry to say, but you're missing out on seeing Marty on a real hoverboard. Well, I got a McFly. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the sequel. Doc! Thanks for joining us on Video in Focus, brought to you by the fine folks here at Vidyard. If you enjoyed the show, give it a like or a share, hit that subscribe button for future episodes, and check out the podcast version now available as part of the Creating Connections podcast series.